everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Mia. Thank you for tuning in to another video. And today's video is going to be a teacher talk. And we're going to discuss 5 tips for effective classroom management. Now, classroom management has been something that I have always struggled with. It's no secret that classroom management is not one of my strong points of teaching. So, just based on my experience, these are like 5 tips that I came up with to try to help teachers with their classroom management. This is just based on my experience. So I've been teaching, I'm in my 5th year teaching. And these just are some tips and tricks that I've learned over the course of those 5 years. And I hope that I can help out one of my fellow teachers. Okay. So number 5, know that every child is different. And every group of children is going to be different. So it's important to take into account that the group you had one year is not going to be the same group that you have the next year. You know, so you have to be prepared to for the challenges that's going to come with every group. And then also within that group, every single child is going to be different. So what works for 5 of your kids might not work for the other 5. So it's just important to know that every child is different and take that into consideration when you're coming up with your classroom management strategy. Number 4, trial and error. Don't be afraid to try different things. I think that was one of the main things that I struggled with. It's like I came up with this plan, and when it didn't work, I was afraid to try other things, or I didn't want to try other things because my plan that I came up with had failed. So I didn't want to try any other thing. And I think I had to get out of that mindset and just know, like, it's going to take trial and error. It's going to take for you to try a couple of different things in order to have effective classroom management. So just know that if one thing doesn't work, something else will. You just have to try it out, you know. If it doesn't work, find something else. And just don't give up, because something is going to come to you to help you manage your classroom effectively. And I just realized I'm yelling, y'all. I'm sorry. Okay. Number 3, establish rules and procedures. And when I say establish rules and procedures, you as the teacher needs to sit down and come up with your classroom rules yourself. You as a teacher need to sit down and come up with the procedures for your classroom. Now, I teach elementary, so classroom rules and procedures are going to be different for the different grades, such as middle school and high school. But as far as elementary, you need to sit down and take a moment and come up with those things, like write them down. And when you're writing them down, when you're coming up with them, take into consideration the grade that you're teaching. So, for example, when I taught 1st grade, my classroom rules and procedures were different from the classroom rules and procedures when I taught 4th grade. You know, with 1st grade, I had to really break it down and make it simple. But with 4th grade, it could be a rule like be respectful. And when you're writing something like be respectful, be prepared to have those conversations about what respect is and what respect is not. So establish the rules and procedures on your own. And it's okay if you want to establish classroom rules with your class, but you still need to do the legwork to come up with the rules yourself. And then come up with the rules for your class. So it's kind of like you're coaching your class to come up with the rules, but you already came up with the rules. You already know the rules that you want for your classroom. And I think it's effective to come up with the classroom rules as a class, as a whole as well. But by you doing it beforehand, you already thought about it and you already have what processes you need in order to have an effective, safe, nurturing, you know, type of classroom. So establish the rules and procedures you want beforehand. And then with the kids, you know, come up with the classroom rules. Practice those classroom rules. Teachers, model for your class what those rules and procedures look like and practice it until they get it. I'm saying practice, practice, practice until they get it. Even if you have to practice all day, one day, practice it until they get it. They will either get it or get tired of doing the same thing over and over again, and they'll do the right things. But yes, you establish them beforehand and then practice them with your class. Show them what those rules and classroom procedures look like. Allow time for the kids to ask questions. You ask them questions. Make sure that they understand this is how every single thing works, even from getting a pencil, sharpening a pencil, you know, breaking your pencil, like those types of things. Sweat the small stuff. Sweat the small things so they don't become bigger issues. So even something as simple as getting tissue or needing to, like, I used hand signals a lot. 1 was tissue, 2 was restroom, 3 was pencil, 4 was like water or something like that. Like, but have those rules and procedures in place and make sure the kids know them. You make sure they know them at the beginning, and it will not be a problem on down the line. Let's just say school starts in August. Make sure that they get those rules and classroom rules and procedures down packed in August, and you won't have to still be doing the same thing, you know, in October. You might have to do like a refresher after the breaks, but they will have them down because you've established them. They understood, they practiced, you modeled. All of those things happen in that one area, you know, so make sure you get that done. Number 2. Okay, so this might be a little controversial, but I use incentives a lot. That might be a bad thing, but use incentives. You have to make learning interesting and fun for them, and they cannot do that in chaos. So I like to take things that I know that they want and I know that they will work for, to make them follow the rules and do what they're supposed to do inside of the classroom. So I use incentives. I brought a lot of snacks. I use junk food, candy, computer time, recess time, anything that you know will make them comply. I'm not saying comply in like a bad way, but you want your classroom to be effective. You want students learning. You also want them having fun, but like I said, that cannot be done in chaos. So it's just important that you make sure that they're in an environment that they can succeed in. So use those incentives. Do what you have to do in order to make them follow the rules and the procedures of the classroom. And the last one, I think this was also one that I struggled with because I am too nice. So take charge of the classroom. I oftentimes felt like I had no control over my class, over my students. I had no control. So I had to take a step back and let them know, little people, hey, I'm in charge here, you know. But you also don't want them to feel like that this is not their place or like home to them. You also don't want them to feel like that. So it's important to kind of have a balance between I'm the teacher and this is my classroom, and this is our classroom. This is our shared space, and we have to respect our shared space. But take charge of the classroom and just let the kids know that you mean business when it comes down to learning. You mean business when it comes down to following the rules, and you mean business when it's time to follow the procedures of the classroom. Sorry, y'all, my nose is itching for some reason. But yes, take charge of the classroom and just let them know that you're not playing with them. And I think that's important because they need to know, like, when I get in Miss J's class, I am not going to act so-and-so. I'm not going to do so-and-so because I know she doesn't play. So these were just the 5 tips that I came up with, just based on my experience. Like, I struggled with classroom management so much that it was like I was really questioning, was this the job for me? My college prepared me so much. My educational program was amazing, but it also just showed me how different teaching in the suburbs would be from teaching in the inner city. You know, I student taught in the suburbs, in a how do I want to say this? In a well-off neighborhood, you know. But my first teaching job was not. It was inner city, you know. It was in one of the not so well-off areas, you know. So I really had to make that adjustment, you know. It was like a culture shock. So my college program did prepare me a lot for the classroom, but it also left some parts for me to find out for myself. So I think by following these 5 tips, you know, you could have an effective classroom management strategy. I didn't go into detail about some of the classroom management strategies that I've used, and I can make that in a separate video, but this is just some things to think about. Like when you're thinking about how you want your classroom to run, when you're thinking about how you want certain aspects of your classroom to go, these are just some tips to kind of help you through that thought process. Like remember about the children that you serve. Trial and error. Try certain things. If they don't work, try something else. If that doesn't work, try something else. You don't want to be all year still working on classroom management, but you do want to take the time to try some things and find out what works. Establish the rules and procedures on your own. Like sit down and actually think about it. I think a lot of people don't do this, and this kind of poses the problem. Use incentives. Some people frown upon using incentives, but they work. And then just take charge of your class. Like, just remember that this is your class. Like, these students are depending on you, like your principal, everybody, because this is your class. So, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And comment down below some of the tips you have for effective classroom management. I know this is a topic that a lot of people struggle with. Comment down below some of the tips that you have. Subscribe to my channel if you would like to see more teacher talks. And I'll see you in my next video. Bye.